2021, a woman faced a near-disastrous incident during her birthday celebration when her head was forcibly pushed into her cake. The cake had sharp wooden dowels inside, which narrowly missed her eye and had to be removed by a doctor in the emergency room. Disturbing courtroom footage showed murderer Randall Moore saying he feels no remorse for kidnapping and offing his ex-wife, Therese Ann Lynch Moore, in 2009. Randall Moore kidnapped Therese Ann from a Des Moines retail store parking lot, where he S.A.'d her and inflicted fatal injuries. Moore was found guilty of the crime and is currently serving a life sentence for the offing, in addition to 25 years for shooting and injuring a Des Moines police officer. In 2019, Alana Cutland, a student at Cambridge University, tragically jumped to her death from an airplane while returning home from a study trip in Madagascar. Cutland seemed fine during boarding, but a mere 10 minutes after takeoff, she surprisingly unfastened her seatbelt and opened the door of the light aircraft, flying at an altitude of 5,000 feet above the ground. Reports indicated that Cutland had been unwell and had episodes of paranoia prior to the incident. During that period, her family suggested that she might have been experiencing adverse reactions to prescription medication. There was a concern that her body might never be found, but fortunately, a local tribe discovered her remains after villagers joined the search efforts. In March 2024, a 24-year-old Bengaluru man named Yogesh died due to a burst colon after his friend blew air into his rectum with an electric high-pressure blow dryer used for vehicles. The friend was playfully blowing air at him, and when he turned to shield his face, the force of the air was such that it entered his rectum and severely damaged his colon. Milton Mufungulwa Sipalo, also known as the Lusaka Strangler, was a Zambian serial offer and arrest. The most prolific Zambian serial offer, Sipalo offed 29 women and girls between January and September 1980. On the 16th of September 1980, one of his two surviving victims, accompanied by the police, went back to the bus station she was attacked at. She quickly recognized Sipalo as her attacker, and he was arrested. 3 days later, Sipalo escaped the clutches of the police officers escorting him and ran to the roof of the police station he was being held at. He then jumped off the building and offed himself. Robert Hansen, an FBI agent tasked with finding a mole in the agency, was revealed to be the mole himself, spying for the KGB from 1979 to 2001. His espionage, considered one of the most damaging in U.S. history, involved leaking around 6,000 classified documents, including nuclear strategies and military technologies. Arrested in 2001, Hansen avoided the death penalty by pleading guilty to espionage and was sentenced to 15 life terms without parole. He died in 2023 at ADX Florence. In 2021, 25-year-old Iraqi chef Isa Ismail met a tragic accident when he fell into a large vat of chicken soup while preparing food for a wedding. The accident left him with severe third-degree burns over 70% of his body. Despite battling these severe burn injuries for several days, he succumbed to his injuries on June 21st, 2021. Ricky Ray Rector, a man with mental disabilities, was executed in 1992 in Conway, Arkansas for illegal offings. During his final meal, he ordered steak, fried chicken, Kool-Aid, and pecan pie. He left the pie untouched on the side of the tray, telling the officers that he was saving it for later. He was sentenced to the pearly gates after committing an offing in a restaurant and evading capture for 3 days. Rector eventually agreed to surrender, but instead of complying, he inflicted wounds on the police officer who had negotiated his surrender in the back. In a subsequent self-offing attempt, Rector shot his own head, which resulted in a lobotomy-like effect on his brain. Chandler police officer Aaron Little offered a 26-year-old man a hug to prevent him from jumping off a bridge. The man eventually climbed off the bridge and shared an emotional embrace with the officer. On March 31, 2006, Brian Schaffer, a medical student at Ohio State University, joined his friends at a bar to mark the start of spring break. Later that night, he became separated from his group, and they assumed he had gone home. After several days passed with no sign of Brian, he was reported missing. When the surveillance video from the bar was reviewed, Brian was never seen leaving. To this day, he remains missing. In April 2014, Dutch travelers Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon disappeared while hiking in Panama. After weeks of searching, their belongings were found, including phones with failed emergency call attempts and eerie photos. Months later, their remains were discovered, but the circumstances of their deaths remain a mystery. Scary, morbid facts about the Zodiac Killer, Part 1. The Zodiac Killer is an unidentified serial killer who terrorized Northern California in the late 1960s and early 1970s. The Zodiac claimed to have killed 37 people, though only 5 confirmed victims are linked to him. His confirmed victims include 2 women and 3 men, ranging in age from 16 to 29. The first known victims, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, were shot on December 20th, 1968. The Zodiac Killer sent taunting letters to newspapers, bragging about his crimes and threatening further violence. Scary, morbid facts about the Zodiac Killer. Part 2. He often included cryptograms in his letters, challenging the public to decode them. One of his cryptograms, the 408-symbol cipher, was solved quickly, but others remain unsolved. The Zodiac Killer's most famous cipher, the 340-symbol cipher, went unsolved for over 50 years until it was cracked in 2020. In his letters, the Zodiac demanded that his ciphers be published on the front page of newspapers, or he would kill again. The Zodiac Killer gave himself his name in a letter sent to the San Francisco Chronicle on August 7, 1969. Sharon Tate, a rising Hollywood star, was brutally offed on August 9, 1969 by members of the Manson family. 8 months pregnant, she was slashed 16 times in her Los Angeles home, along with 4 others. The word pig was written with her inside liquid on the front door. The gruesome crime shocked the world, forever tying Tate's legacy to one of the most morbid chapters in American history. In 1964, Kitty Genovese was brutally attacked and offed outside her New York apartment. Over 30 witnesses reportedly heard her screams, yet no one intervened or called the police. Her offing exposed the chilling bystander effect, where people assume others will take action, leading to a horrifying lack of response. The case remains a disturbing example of urban apathy and human indifference. Chandra Levy, a 24-year-old intern, vanished in May 2001, sparking a nationwide search. Her remains were found a year later in D.C. Rock Creek Park, in a chilling, remote area. The case took a morbid turn when ties to a congressman emerged, fueling dark suspicions. The mystery of who ended her life remains hauntingly unresolved. Martha Moxley was brutally offed on October 30th, 1975, in her own yard in Greenwich, Connecticut. Just 15 years old, she was last seen alive at a neighbor's house. Her body was found the next day under a tree, bludgeoned with a golf club. The case went unsolved for decades, haunting the town and sparking rumors of high-profile cover-ups. Japan's ghost ships are a chilling mystery. These abandoned vessels, often from North Korea, drift into Japanese waters, sometimes carrying nothing but skeletal remains. The crews likely perished due to harsh weather, starvation, or failed escape attempts. Even more unsettling, these ships keep appearing, over 150 in 1 year alone. The eerie silence of the dead crew members and the unknown fate of these ships create a haunting enigma that still baffles investigators. A mysterious monolith appeared in Las Vegas, echoing the strange structures seen worldwide. Las Vegas authorities announced that a local volunteer search and rescue team had spotted a shiny, metallic monolith near Gas Peak in the Desert National Wildlife Refuge north of the city. Standing at 6 feet, 5 inches tall, and 13 inches wide on each of its 3 faces, the monolith was made of folded sheet metal and held together with rebar and concrete. David Swerner, a gallerist who represents the estate of the late artist John McCracken, initially told the New York Times that he believed the object was created by McCracken. But Swerner later retracted that assertion after getting a closer look at the monolith and seeing that it was machine-made, which was not McCracken's style. At Devil's Kettle in Minnesota, a river splits. One half flows normally, while the other plunges into a deep hole and vanishes. Despite efforts, scientists can't trace where the water goes. Some locals believe it's a gateway to another world, while others fear it swallows anything, even people, without a trace, leaving behind an eerie, unsolved mystery. The dark truths behind terrifying urban legends. Ever heard of the kidney heist legend? It's not just a story. In some real-life cases, people were drugged, waking up in bathtubs filled with ice, only to discover their organs had been stolen. Or take the black-eyed children, creepy kids who knock on doors at night, begging to be let in. Some believe they're a sign of imminent danger or even death. And the classic Bloody Mary chant. It's rumored that calling her name in a mirror can summon a vengeful spirit, seeking revenge for her violent death. Would you dare to try it? Morbid facts. The scariest things about animals and objects. Did you know sloths move so slowly that algae grow on their fur, making them a moving ecosystem? Or that the Japanese pufferfish, a delicacy, can kill you with one wrong cut because it contains a poison 1,200 times deadlier than cyanide. Inanimate objects can be deadly too. Some old clocks and antiques are radioactive, emitting dangerous levels of radon gas. And did you know that mirrors can harbor bacteria for weeks, making them a potential breeding ground for disease? Did you know the human body can stay conscious for up to 20 seconds after decapitation? Or that there's a rare condition called walking corpse syndrome, where people genuinely believe they're dead? In forests, the suicide tree in India has fruits so toxic that it's responsible for more self-offings than any other plant. And in the deep sea, there's a fish called the anglerfish that uses a bioluminescent lure to attract prey, essentially hunting with its own glowing body part. 4 haunting cold cases that were finally solved. The Golden State Killer terrorized California for decades, committing at least 13 offings and 50 rapes. He was finally caught in 2018 using DNA from a genealogy website. In the Grim Sleeper case, Lonnie Franklin Jr. was caught in 2010 after 25 years of targeting women in Los Angeles. The offing of a 9-year-old girl in Indiana went unsolved for 30 years until DNA found at the scene matched a truck driver in 2018. The Bear Brook murders were cracked after 35 years, revealing a serial offer hiding in plain sight.